well, my name is Micah Hanks, and I go by Micah Hanks. I'm known for my website, The Graylien Report, and so some people call me The Graylien, but that's certainly not what I actually go by. It's been a lifelong quest, I think, for me, and people say quest, and that's an overused term these days. I yearn for the days when people actually had to trudge up and down mountains and go down into caves, forage the fields, and literally live the adventure of sustenance and trying to strive to thrive. These days in this technological culture, we've lost a lot. But by the same token, we've also gained. There's always, with all things good, with the bad. For me, the adventure began, if we want to call it that, at an early age. And I continue to pursue the same sorts of things that really interested me, when I was just a kid in grade school. The UFO phenomena, of course, was interpreted by my young mind then, was an extraterrestrial presence in our midst, something that came from another planet, something that traversed the cosmos and lands in our space-time reality and visits the little mud ball we call terra firma, or planet Earth. And today, it's something very different. And while I'm still in pursuit of a phenomena that I've spent all my life looking for, there is a fundamental change in my philosophical perception of what this phenomena is. And while there are many who would say, there's nothing to it, well, you're wasting what intelligence you have studying things that there's really no scientific merit to study. I always maintain that really fundamentally all phenomena begin as unexplained phenomena. And if we remember that all phenomena begin as the unexplained, and that science seeks to disprove, to separate the wheat from the proverbial chaff, and to find exactly what we can prove to be, through rigorous scientific methodology, fundamental laws and constants observable in our universe, those things are what we're all really trying to find and trying to understand. And for me, that's what it has become. It has become a fundamental reshaping of my understanding of the things that have intrigued me since childhood, and which today I realize, truly, I think on a universal scale are some of the most important issues that we address as humanity and as a civilization. Those specifically are UFOs, and not alien spaceships from another world, but merely unidentified flying objects, the political, the geopolitical, socio-cultural, and of course also the national security issues that are all concomitant with the study of purported objects of possibly terrestrial origin, possibly something else, and certainly what appear to be at times exotic technology. Unknown sources, of course, but something that appears to be a highly advanced exotic technology. All of these kinds of things taken into consideration show that there's far more to the world around us than what we think that we know. And they do certainly merit further scientific and serious study. And that's where I am today. A couple of the projects that we have going on right now, and I say we because, there's myself, and I do have, close colleagues and associates that work with me, but also a number of members in academia who, unfortunately, because of their position, I've said this often and people have often heard me say it, because of their position in academia, they are not able to be as forthcoming with their own personal identities. But it shows that people on all levels of society, and all levels of influence, and all levels really, truly of knowledge, in our culture, have maintained and possess at times an interest in what we would deem today the unexplained. So some of the projects that I've been working on deal with natural phenomena, what I perceive as being natural phenomena. One location, Brown Mountain, North Carolina, which is actually close to a larger protected wilderness area called the Linville Gorge, purported earth lights that occur in there. And have since at very least the 1860s, presumably if it's natural phenomena, since much earlier times. There are anecdotal legends about what have become known as the Brown Mountain Lights that state that Native American legends predate the settlers, the European settlers who inhabited that region and who told about these kinds of things. But really the problem is that when we look at this skeptically, there is no verifiable data that arrives before the 1860s that is substantive, that seems to suggest that there is indeed a phenomena at Brown Mountain. What is described are lights, self-contained luminous orbs of light that appear and that sometimes behave extremely erratically, sometimes actually move through the air at high speed. By all accounts, they are really properly termed as UFOs. They are unidentified flying objects. But they may be something more akin to another little-known scientific phenomenon that many study, and that is plasmas or ball lightning. So that's something that's very interesting to me. In addition to, a number of cases of individuals who have gone missing, some in relation to some UFO type activity, what some perceive as such. Today at the Paradigm Symposium, I gave a lecture that was about the disappearance of a man named Frederick Valentich. And there have been a number of skeptical articles that address this case, and I've tried to address it just as skeptically. And yet I find that there are key elements to the case, I think, that can be drawn from discussion about it with people who knew the man who went missing, Frederick Valentich. And yet those individuals were never interviewed by skeptics who have claimed that the case is now closed. They say another UFO cold case closed. Well, I would beg to differ. I don't know that we can say that that is a cold case closed. And although it's a case that is, several decades old, it took place in October of 1978, we still don't know definitively what happened to Frederick Valentich. There are many questions, and it's not really fair either to he or to those who knew him to say that the case is closed. And yet I see so many people, especially of the modern skeptical ilk, who do that. I'm very much to my core a skeptic, and I really challenge and criticize the skeptics out there in the community who would also say that they can leap to a supposition or to a kind of speculative, end and say that this case, despite the fact that we don't have a conclusive idea really of where he went, what happened to Valentich, that this is a case closed. So while that's an old case, both of these really, Brown Mountain and the Valentich disappearance, are both older cases. I think that as time goes on and we try to attempt to apply good, reasonable skepticism and a scientific methodology to these cases, that we do learn things over time. And this idea that we have to look only at recent cases, there can be plenty learned from looking at old cases, but it requires, I think, at times, a different approach to thought and a different way of orienting ourselves and our minds around how we approach the study of this phenomenon. There's a spiritual side to all this. And maybe not everyone feels spiritual. I always have. I'm a person who tries to be led by rational thinking. And to the very heart and core, I am a rationalist. But I also am brave enough to admit and humble enough to realize that we don't have all the answers. And there's a lot about this universe that we don't fully understand. There's a lot that we don't know. And the first problem is when we presume to know, again, in the absence of evidence, in the absence of answers. And so, again, this is why I've so often advocated this perspective from what I call the middle ground. In fact, I do a podcast available on iTunes called Middle Theory. And this, although the name was derived by my co-host, Christopher McCollum, the concept of middle theory is that when we become so ideologically extreme, either for or against, right or left, belief, skepticism, whatever it is, day, night, death, life, you become biased and you become beholden to an ideology that is innately going to be skewed one way or another. We really need to be able to come to the center. And so when it comes to espousing this middle-of-the-road view, it's interesting because that is, I think, an entirely rational view, but there's a spiritual component too. Understanding that, hey, and from the middle, sometimes we can look and see in all directions and still not have the answer. There are things that exist beyond what humans can fully conceive. And one day we will. I think that through the advancement of science, knowledge, and technologies that are yet to come, that we may not have even conceived today, that we will probably fully master things that would seem literally the likeness of magic to us today. But in the meantime, in the interim, we have to face the fact that there are some things that we may be able to perceive, although peripherally, but that we will never fully understand. And hence I always say that really we have to balance. And the meditation, if you want to call it that came to me this morning, was that, we must be critical, but we must be open-minded also. But fundamentally, we must be brilliant, because only by being brilliant and striving to be that will we be able to illuminate the darkness that separates us from the unexplained. Now, all things, as we said at the outset, when we begin through the scientific process, all things, all observable phenomena begin as unexplained phenomena. But we can't continue to call them unexplained, and we can't continue to deny what appears to be observable and yet, as yet, unexplained. And again, it's that brilliance of rational skepticism, but also the inclusive attitude of open-mindedness that really will bring us to a better chance, at the very least at the outset, a better chance, a hope to be able to begin to understand it, to bridge that gap of darkness between where we are now, what we can perceive, and what we now call the unexplained. It won't always be that, but we've got to be able to apply proper methodology to get from point A to point B. And the end result, it will be knowledge. And I'm an advocate of knowledge. I believe in knowledge. I also believe in human ability to learn, but we have to, I think, find innovative and more careful ways to think about certain things, maybe things that we would call unexplained, than what we've done in the past. And that would be what I would leave with people. Now, any websites or anything that I've got right now, if people want to see online, they can simply go to www.micahhanks.com. There's also the Graylien Report, which is a weekly podcast I do, which is graylienreport.com. We also have a subscriber area for that. And then, of course, middletheory.com, which is a news and current events podcast that also deals with some conspiracy subjects, but I think, again, in a reasonable, rational way. Again, let's ground ourselves in the middle so that we don't become beholden to ideological extremes and the biases that lie therein.